Well, this is Sound System Outernational number 7. And so it's welcome to you all on our, in our webinar and on our YouTube channel. Okay, number 7, Sound System Outernational is Sound System at the Crossroads, and we'll be dealing with that in the course of tonight's proceedings. I'll just introduce myself. I'm Julian Henriquez. I'm a professor in the Department of Media, Communication and Cultural Studies in Goldsmiths, University of London. And I'm also one of the Outernational team. This is the second session in this conference. The first one was last night. Sorry, the first one was on Friday. But even if you missed that, you can catch it again because it's all on YouTube. And that was a brilliant session called the Sonic Challenge, Post-Pandemic Sound System Practices. And one of the participants in that, one of the sound system participants in that session was Feminine Hi-Fi from Sao Paulo, Brazil. And they're doing a special online session for us tonight after we've had our discussion with Carolyn Cooper. And so the conference, as you'll be hearing, is going on tonight and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. So you've got a whole week of goodies, sound system goodies ahead of you. And I should just point out that this whole event is in association with another organization, which is Sonic Street Cultures, which is a European Research Council project. And in fact, we've just, Sonic Street Cultures has just launched its website. So if you want to find it, you'll have to go to the exact name because we haven't got our Google algorithms quite sorted yet. And so that's sonic-street-technologies.com. Anyway, there's more information there about that organization. But tonight, it's all about Sound System Outernational. And before I introduce Professor Cooper, what I'd like to do is to introduce the other members of the Outernational team. And so I'm going to start with asking David Katz just to say a few words about himself.
Thank you, Julian. Greetings to one and all. Thanks to all of you for joining us here at Sound System Outernational 7, Sound Systems at the Crossroads. My name is David Katz. I'm the author of People Funny Boy, The Genius of Lee Scratch Perry, and Solid Foundation, An Oral History of Reggae. I've also produced some documentaries for Public Radio International on sound system culture worldwide, and those are archived at afropop.org. It's always been a pleasure and a privilege to have been involved in the previous editions of Sound System Outernational. I found that each one has brought something different to the table. It's always been an edifying and gratifying experience. I find there's always so much more to learn. So thanks again to all of you for joining us. We encourage you to take part, join us for each of the other sessions this week. Handing over now, passing the baton to our colleague, Vincent Moystad.
Thank you, David. Hi, everyone. My name is Vincent Moystad. I'm a PhD student in the Department of Media, Communication and Cultural Studies at Goldsmiths, being supervised by Julian Henriquez. My own research is also about sound system culture, with an emphasis on sound systems as a practice of resistance and community building. I've been part of the Sound System Outernational team since 2016, and it's been an incredible environment to pursue research in, with a real commitment to community-led, practitioner-led research, exploring new ways of doing research, making that research count for the culture. Before I pass over, I grew up in Oslo, Norway. I want to give a quick shout out to Rosefish and Cornbread Sound, Roots Invasion Sound, Russ Boyer Sound, Dominic Rubin and Selector Harmony, Rudy Sounds, the Get Ready crew, and everyone who's keeping the culture going there as well. So with that said, I'd pass on the word to our colleague, Leo.
Thank you, Vincent. I'm Leo Jagao. I teach film studies and popular music studies at Fine Art School of Universidade Federal de Minas Gerais, a free and public university in Brazil. I also had the honor to edit an issue of the journal Interactions, Studies in Communications in Culture with Professor Carolyn Cooper. And also part of the Sound System Outernational team since 2016. And I greeting everyone who is here. Thank you.
Okay, and Brenda Aquino, please.
Hi everyone, greetings. My name is Brenda Aquino. I'm a senior research assistant at the Sonic Street Technologies research project at Goldsmiths, University of London. And I'm also a sound owner and operator with the Bababoom Hi-Fi sound system, a record label in Italy, where I'm currently based most of the time. And yeah, you might have met me because I had the privilege to chair last Friday's session, the Sonic Challenge. So hello everyone again, and I'm handing it over to Oana.
Hi everyone, welcome to Sound Systems at the Crossroads. My name is Oana Pravan. I'm a theorist and have been working with the Sound System Outernational network since 2017, 2018. So I want to remind you all that we have a very rich lineup and program made of both live events and panels, keynotes like this one, but also sound system sessions, interactive workshops, and very importantly, a whole program of screenings of sound system culture related movies and short movies that you can only view during this event, which will last until the 16th of July. So look up for our socials, specifically Instagram, Sound System Outernational, and in the link tree of our Instagram profile, you can find all the information of where to find the screenings and the Eventbrite tickets. And yeah, and also follow our YouTube channel, because that's where you will be able to see our premiere sound system sessions, just like the one following this keynote. And in terms of Q&As, I will also be the one receiving all your questions. If you have questions, write it in the Q&A box at any moment of this event, and I will be sending them directly to Julian, who will be hosting this session, and they will be asked live by Julian, so that we can send all the questions you have. So I hope you enjoyed this event and stay with us for the next 4 days.
Thank you very much, Oana. Thank you very much, all the team. And so I can now introduce our keynote speaker, Professor Carolyn Cooper. And the proverbial needs no introduction is absolutely true, I think, for Professor Cooper and everybody in this webinar. Welcome to you, Carolyn. And I think we can say with Professor Cooper that she really is the founding mother of reggae studies. She literally has put over many years reggae and sound system culture on the map. As a worthy topic, a worthy research topic in a university. But unfortunately, this map is not followed by everybody in Jamaica, at least, as she recently wrote, in fact, yesterday in her column in the Sunday Gleaner newspaper. And part of the whole proceedings of Outernational in this session is to, if you like, help to gain greater recognition and that evaluation of reggae culture and sound system culture. And Professor Cooper established at the University of the West Indies the Reggae Studies Unit at the Mona campus, and she ran that, in fact, for 15 years. Quite fantastic achievement. And her books, Noises in the Blood, Orality, Gender, and the Vulgar Body of Jamaican Popular Culture. And another book, Sound Clash, Jamaican Dancehall Culture at Large, are two, well, I mean, you easily say key texts in the whole field of reggae and cultural studies. She's also an educator, and for her outstanding work in the field of education, Professor Cooper was awarded the national honor, the Order of Distinction, in the rank of Commander in 2013. Okay, so Sound System Outernational, Professor Cooper, gives you a big welcome. And if this was a in-flesh event, you'd be hearing the applause right now. But these are my applause for everybody.
Thank you very much, Julian, for your generous introduction. I must say, though, that the work of the Reggae Studies Unit has been a collaborative enterprise. And I must big up Professor Hubert Devonish, who was one of the first people I shared the idea of Reggae Studies with. And he quickly caught the vision and he developed the first draft of the proposal that went to academic, our faculty board for approval. So I have to really big up Hubert, but there are so many other people that, I have to thank. And as you will see in the paper, this is a paper written by my village. So many other people contributed bits and pieces to the paper. So I'm happy to represent that movement for the academic support of reggae and dancehall in Jamaica. So, wheel and come again, sound system culture in lockdown. The globalization of Jamaican sound system technology is an emphatic reminder of the extraordinary cultural power of a very small island in the Caribbean, although many Jamaicans really don't know how small we are. We think that we're large. From the concrete jungle of Kingston, the vibrations of a truly innovative musical instrument have reverberated across the world, as illustrated so emphatically in this series of Sound System International, Outernational conferences, but it's international and outernational. Of course, outernational is a Rastafari inversion of international. The emergence of legendary sound system entrepreneurs such as, first slide, Tom the Great Sebastian. Come in, my selector. Tom the Great Sebastian. One, next slide. Clement Coxon Dodd. And next slide, Duke Reed. This emergence of a legendary sound system culture is a manifestation of a unique culture of creativity that has produced a wide range of musical genres: mento, ska, rocksteady, reggae, dub, hip hop, dancehall, and a multiplicity of versions. But as Julian alluded to as I made the point in my column yesterday, 7 decades after the birth of the sound system in Jamaica, this revolutionary art form still has not received at home the critical acclaim it deserves. The working class origins of the sound system have obscured its technological brilliance. The Jamaican elite routinely dismiss sound systems as pure noise. They cannot appreciate its aesthetics. The global reach of the sound system enterprise is incomprehensible. Furthermore, the Jamaican elite failed to calculate the contribution that the multi-layered culture of the sound system makes to the Jamaican economy. Nor do they understand the psychosocial benefits of the sound system as a primal form of communal engagement. The literal clash between rival sound systems contending in the dance for mastery before a discriminating audience is a compelling trope for ideological conflict between competing value systems in Jamaica. The sound clash evokes class warfare between uptown and downtown, between decency and vulgarity, between culture and slackness, and ultimately between noise and music. Long before the COVID-19 pandemic decimated live entertainment, Jamaican sound systems operated in a state of precarity, constantly subject to the threat of lockdown. Slide 5, next. The punitive 1997 Noise Abatement Act was designed to control noise caused by amplified sound and other specified equipment. I noticed that the legal area for the act is environment. So that just covers everything. In next slide, it is elaborated in this way. Don't know what has happened to the PowerPoint. Is it still up? I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
still up.
apparently it's up.
I don't know why I'm getting something else. Anyhow, let me press along. It's elaborated in this way in slide 6. No person shall, on any private premises or in any public place at any time of day or night, sing or sound or play upon any musical or noisy instrument, or, next slide, operate or permit or cause to be operated any loudspeaker, microphone, or any other device for the amplification of sound in such a manner that the sound is audible beyond a distance of 100 meters from the source of the sound. I'm just trying to see if I can get rid of this screen, this search screen that is irritating me. I don't know what it is. Anyhow, let me just forget about it. The Act does not exclusively target sound systems. It refers to quote unquote public meetings, including those convened by political parties. Nevertheless, the outlawing of sound that is audible beyond a distance of 100 meters from the source severely restricts the auditory reach of Jamaican sound system. The Noise Abatement Act has its antecedents in the repressive laws that attempted to regulate the use of musical instruments in colonial Jamaica. The potency of music forced the plantocracy to ban liberating cultural practices. In 1688, the customs of the island's prohibition on drums and horns became law in Jamaica. I'm indebted to Dr. Sonia Standenaya, Director of the Institute of Caribbean Studies at the University of the West Indies, Mona, for bringing this law to my attention. Historian Elsa Gavaya observes in her essay, The West Indian Slave Laws of the 18th Century, that, quote, traditions of a representative government determined that the slave laws of the British colonies were made directly by a slave-owning ruling class. These laws were therefore an immediate reflection of what the slave owner conceived to be the necessities of the slave system. Nevertheless, enslaved Africans rebelled against punitive laws, refusing to be silenced. They continued to foment revolution with their drums and horns. And in the absence of these instruments, they clapped their hands and beat out rhythms on their bodies, literally inhabiting emancipation. Noise became an act of resistance against enslavement. It is this tradition of systemic resistance against dehumanization that is manifested in Jamaican popular music in the 20th and 21st centuries. The revolutionary body of work produced over this period pays homage to generations of unnamed antecedents who handed down a legacy of emancipation through music. Now, in response to the 1997 Noise Abatement Act, sound system operators mobilized to protect their livelihood. Next slide. The legendary Louise Fraser Bennett, publicist, artist manager, booking agent, and dancehall icon, initiated the establishment of the Sound System Association of Jamaica. Louise recounted its history in a talk she gave at the University of the West Indies. She was the very first speaker in the long-running lecture series launched in October 2002 by the Reggae Studies Unit, almost 2 decades ago. Ninja Man should have had that honor. I had met him at the South Camp Road Correctional Center, where Louise had invited me to speak in a series, Reverence for Life. It was part of the center's rehabilitation program. Ninja Man made an eloquent presentation, and I decided that on his release, I would invite him to speak at UE. The lecture was all set for Friday, October 13. Perhaps that was an inauspicious date. The DVA chose as the title of his presentation, Ninja Man's Program to Elevate Jamaica. Skeptics contested his capacity to speak with authority on the subject. Flyers were defaced with question signs. On the day of the lecture, the Daily Observer converted into national news, a routine press release announcing the DJ's talk. Decent citizens bombarded the university administration with strident complaints that the decision to invite Ninja Man to lecture was a clear sign that the walls of the ivory tower had been irreparably breached. The talk shows had a field day. Apparently intimidated by the furore, Ninja Man did not come after all. In response, the October 15 Sunday Observer published a deliberately misleading cartoon. A notice on the chalkboard in a lecture room, presumably on the UE campus, announces Ninja Man's talk scheduled for 5 p.m. A clock says 7 p.m. The teacher looks impatiently at her watch. Students are fast asleep, and one of the remaining two says to her, "Him not coming again, Miss Cooper. Maybe him gone border clash." The dismissive cartoon did not accurately reflect what happened. A capacity audience of several hundred students, faculty, and members of the public engaged in a lively conversation about the meaning of Ninja Man's work when it became clear he was not going to appear. The discussion lasted for well over an hour. The following week, Ninja Man did come to talk as the opening act for Louise. He observed, quote, "Jamaica are got down into a pothole, and we need, not me, not you, not some of us, we need the whole country to come together and make a start. The Prime Minister himself need help," unquote. Ninja Man's startling image of the state machinery crashing in a pothole vividly turns the everyday horrors of Jamaica's steadily deteriorating roads into a powerful symbol of total moral recklessness. Louise's talk was most entertaining and informative. Her self-assurance in the face of state authority is evident, quote, "So when the pressure of the dancehall came up in 1990, the police started pressure sound system. It was there and then I saw Minister Knight, he was Minister of Justice at the time, and asked him what he was up to. Because we really pay them guy, you know, and them pay we. And we know we have the power to take them down and move them anyway. So I said, Mr. Knight, we need a meeting with you because me want to know where you're up to. This law we're bringing was never visited from 1838. And now we live in the 1990s, unquote. Now, I haven't been able to find an 1838 Noise Abatement Act. It was the Emancipation Act that was passed in 1838. I suppose Louise was using that date to signify the antiquity of the antecedents of the Noise Abatement Act. The date also cunningly suggests that the act is a re-inscription of the old laws which attempted to eradicate the cultural practices of enslaved Africans. Emancipation ought to institute the right to noise freedom abroad, to use that idiom. The Minister of Justice agreed to a meeting. Louise related what happened next. Quote, "Being a no-nonsense person as a woman, I called up 3 other sound system owners, Jammies, Sugar Minot, and Mr. Harper, who is the owner for Kilimanjaro. We went to a meeting with Mr. Knight, and Mr. Knight said, well, who will represent? We said, Mr. Knight will represent sound system, 3 sound system. He said, no, man, you can't come talk to me about 3 sound system. You have to talk about the whole of them, because the whole owner are got jail, unquote. Louise explained why she recommended Winston Powell, the owner of Stone Love, to be president of the association. Next slide. So discussing with the man then, me say, watch ya, better we make this man the president. For this man can pick up man. When we tell a sound say you can't play in a Jamaica unless you join, he might go say, what me can go play because them sound don't have no name. But Stone Love did have a name. So when we say Stone Love is a part of our organization, then Stone Love now go play with you, Lexus now go play with you, Inner City now go play. The odds are you're going to be a part of it because nobody will go play with you. I think I should translate that. Maybe I don't for everybody in the audience, but anyhow, here's translation to English. Look, it's best if we make this man president because he'll be able to get others to join. When we tell a sound system that you can't play in Jamaica unless you join, the operator is going to say that he can continue playing because those other sound systems are no-name sounds. But Stone Love did have a name. So when we say that Stone Love is a part of our organization, then Stone Love won't play with you, Lexus won't play with you, Inner City won't play. The odds are you're going to join because nobody is going to play with you, unquote. Louise's brilliant strategy address the perennial problem of how to get all sound system operators to rally around a common cause. Despite the vigorous attempts of the Sound System Association and ongoing public debate on the matter, the Noise Abatement Act has not been modified in almost 2.5 decades. In 2019, at a seminar on the music industry, next slide, National Security Minister, Honorable Dr. Horace Chang declared, the Noise Abatement Act, while necessary in terms of public order, was structured beyond what it should be. It also became a law enforcement tool, which was a wrong concept, and that's what's causing the problem today, unquote. He alluded to the possibility of a new policy, quote, intended to restore a sense of balance and structure in the industry and to ensure that the Noise Abatement Act is a process to maintain public order and not publish entertainers, unquote. Louise knew how difficult it is to get politicians to keep their word. In her lecture, she outlined her strategy for dealing with them. Quote, because the trick with politicians, is them say something, them say it from them heart, but them no say I go forget. So if you write it down on a piece of paper and the date when them say it, and you keep following them up and remind them and publicly pressure them have to do it. And most of the things them say, them don't want to. So we always follow them for anything them say and get them to act. For we know for a fact that we have the streets. And if we must move them out of their positions, we'll do it. We know say it's we them a work for. We now work with them. Louise's premature death impeded the work of the Sound System Association of Jamaica. She was unable to complete the task of following up the politicians on the pressing matter of abating the Noise Abatement Act. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated the clash between undependable politicians and sound system operators. Public safety measures to contain the spread of the virus locked down the entertainment sector, in theory. In practice, illegal events tested the capacity of the government to effectively police dancehall culture. Huge sound systems could not operate covertly. The scale of their equipment did not allow ease of movement. Winston Weepow Powell reflected on his experience in COVID in an interview with Yasmin Peru published this year on his birthday. Next slide. Quote, it was a very, very rough year. I have had to be constantly making adjustments to cope with what is happening. And it looks like there's a lot more of this for us down the road. Last year, I did a handful of shows overseas, but with the US Embassy not processing any work permits at the moment, things are stalled. So we just have to stay home and try to live. You can't go overseas on an expired work visa. It was not only the sound system operators who suffered. It was the masses of the Jamaican people who were deprived of nurturing entertainment. Next slide. Agostina Pinnock, cultural geographer, asserts, Jamaica's sound system culture is much more than mere entertainment. As part of an evolving system of grassroots mental and emotional healthcare practices, music affords inner city residents escape from the inequitable conditions of contested urban space. The rigidly enforced silences of lockdown disclose deep fissures in the society, unquote. As Weepow put it, we just have to stay home and try to live. Some of those who managed to make a living in lockdown were the studio operators producing dub plates. I'm indebted to Dr. Lisa Tomlinson, lecturer in the Institute of Caribbean Studies at the University of the West Indies, who brought this development to my attention. Next slide. O'Neill Famous, Order of Music Town Studio in St. Andrew, was interviewed by Yasmin Peru for a report published on November 27, 2020, with the catchy headline, Dub Plates Attack Life in COVID. He said, there are internet caches on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and other platforms all across the world. And the thing is that the selectors are cutting a lot of dub plates. Before COVID, it was the hot artists who were in demand, but now things change up a bit, and it is the veterans who are getting the special work, unquote. These veterans include the Silvertones, the Jays, Mighty Diamonds, the Heptones, Josie Wales, Bonnie General, Lone Ranger, and Tristan Palmer. Another kind of operator who managed to survive covertly in the pandemic was the parachuter. I'm indebted to Ricky Trooper, who schooled me on the term. With typical Jamaican wit, parachuter is a term applied to those operators who travel light with a single sound box and their computer in a backpack. The resemblance of the backpack to an unopened parachute is the origin of the name. Parachuters can move quickly, evading the police. The collapse of the entertainment industry has created much hardship in Jamaica, as it has across the globe. Yielding to pressure from a wide range of players in the industry, the government lifted some restrictions on July 1, International Reggae Day. Announcing the structured reopening of the sector, next slide, Prime Minister Andrew Holness declared, "We want the industry to achieve its full potential, but this potential is inhibited because a large sector of the industry is informal and unregulated. Entertainment is business, and we must begin to treat it as a legitimate economic enterprise. We also need to look at how we can use legislation and policy to incentivize the reset of the entertainment industry," unquote. If we are to take the Prime Minister at his word, it would appear as if he's just beginning to understand the need to treat entertainment as a legitimate economic enterprise. His startling statement is an indictment of successive governments that appear to have failed to recognize that entertainment is serious business. And even though entertainment is one component of a mega ministry of culture, gender, entertainment, and sports, its economic value does not appear to be fully acknowledged by the government of Jamaica. The COVID-19 pandemic has forced the Jamaican government to pivot, to wheel and come again, and publicly affirm the vital contribution of the entertainment industry to the local economy. A situational analysis of Jamaica's cultural and creative industries was recently conducted by the British firm Nordicity on behalf of the British Council and the Jamaica Business Development Corporation. And I must thank Kamal Amen, to whom I'm going to refer later, for bringing the document to my attention. He's a PhD candidate in the Institute of Caribbean Studies, and I must tell you, he was a person who initiated the Entertainment and Cultural Enterprise Management degree program that is offered by the Institute of Caribbean Studies. We met in the parking lot one day and he was saying, you know, the industry really needs some support, needs some academic support. And I said to him, why don't you go and develop a program? And in short order, Kamal came up with a brilliant degree program, and the Reggae Studies unit pushed it through to institutionalization. So big up, Kamal. So this situation analysis of Jamaica's creative, cultural, and creative industries was recently conducted by this British firm. This is how Nordicity describes itself. Quote, a leading international consulting firm providing private and public sector clients with solutions for economic analysis, strategy and business, and policy and regulation across 4 priority sectors: arts, culture and heritage, digital and creative media, information and communication technologies, and innovation, and telecommunications and spectrum. With offices in London, UK, Ottawa, Toronto, and Vancouver, Nordicity is ideally placed to assist our clients to succeed in the rapidly evolving global markets, unquote. Now, Nordicity literally means northerness. I can't help wondering how a consulting firm that defines its identity so explicitly as belonging to the global north can tell us in the global south who we are and provide solutions appropriate to our needs. Dr. Deborah Hicklin Gordon, coordinator of the BA in CCI and entertainment programs at the University of the West Indies, Mona, Jamaica, elaborates my own reservations in email correspondence. Quote, frankly, I think it is a bit of an insult as a mapping document, and I think Deborah was being kind by saying it's a bit of an insult. Frankly, I think it is a bit of an insult as a mapping document that sets up our policy processes alongside the UK model. It was done by a British firm with a British council funding. So I'm sure, and I will look again, sound systems are not included, they are not. Which brings home the point I've been beating everyone who will listen over the head with, which is the need to develop an indigenous policy model for cultural economy development and policy for nations of the global south, culturally customized for each country, unquote. In her book, Cultural Economy and Television in Jamaica and Ghana, hashtag decolonization 2.0, she delineates her South Star analytical model for countries of the global south. But he who pays a piper calls a tune. So the British Council contracted Nordicity. Next slide. The March 21 Nordicity report cites UNESCO's estimate of the contribution of CCIs to Jamaica's GDP. Jamaica, he says, UNESCO, according to UNESCO, Jamaica's cultural and creative industry, CCIs, are estimated to contribute 5.2% of the country's GDP, generating revenues of Jamaican $2.2 billion annually and accounting for 3% of total employment. Now, as a teacher of English, I can't resist asking about that vagrant apostrophe mark beside industries. People needed to have proofread their document better. Anyhow, just a little throw word. Now, though the value of the sound system sector is not explicitly computed, it is indeed a major driver of productivity. And when we look at the opening up of the cultural and creative sector that was announced for July 1, we recognize that there are problematic issues that the government has not addressed, even as it says it is now trying to find a way to fully understand and bring into the formal sector the entertainment industry. And next slide, please. Deborah makes a very important critique of the way in which the opening up of the sector is working against certain elements. Yet, the very act of opening up the cultural and creative sector, and in turn leisure and recreation, reveals processes and choices that emphasize the inequities and divides in that sector. In particular, questions have been raised about the entertainment subsector. Next slide. For example, decisions around the newly announced opening times of the sector have been shown to be designed to run counter to the economic, leisure, and recreation and creative work patterns and norms of event promoters in the lower socioeconomic groups. Questions have been raised as to whether the reopening of the sector was designed to cater to the promoters of mega events that have greater flexibility to pivot and refocus the models of their events in order to adhere to the restrictions, unquote. This is a very serious issue, so that if only a certain sector, the uptown, the promoters of the mega events, if they are the ones who are going to benefit, what is going to happen to the people at the lower end of the scale? Dr. Dennis Howard, next slide, creative industry consultant, has always made the point about the importance of sound systems to the economy. There's a vital link between sound systems and the music industry. The dissemination of new music through the dubplate economy and selector juggling is part of the complex music ecosystem of Kingston and other urban centers. And if the sound system sector is not taken seriously, then this means that we are not fully understanding the complexity of the music industry. Dennis's own father ran a sound system, and Dennis is a man who knows the sound system culture intimately. So this vital link between sound systems and the music industry is something that has to be understood if we're going to advance the development of the industry. Next slide. I come now to the insights of Kamal Amen. who describes himself as a research and entertainment and cultural enterprise management. Kamal has a vision, a big vision, of how the sound systems could wheel and come again to claim much more space in the Jamaican economy. First, he suggests that Jamaican music entrepreneurs should scale the sound system segment into streamlined manufacturing operations. That's the first thing, streamlined manufacturing operations. 2, hold trademarks for sound system brands. This is something that has never happened because of the informality of the system. 3, hold patents as pertains to the creation and manufacturing know-how of sound systems. Who has any patents? When Jamaica was developing sound system, we just said, "Chuck, we just do a thing." And we didn't recognize, who would have known that sound systems would have gone outernational? Who would have known that people across the globe would want to know how to build sound systems? So we just did it like so many other things we did. We just take it for granted and we just gone. We don't think of having any patent pertaining to the creation and manufacturing know-how of sound systems. And finally, Jamaican entrepreneurs should have a vibrant global operation to build and consult on building and operating sound systems as streamlined operations. And I tell you, at last Friday's opening session, it was Abidjan from Guadeloupe who talked about the way in which they built their sound system. And I asked, why has his name slipped me? The panel chair, Brian, I asked Brian to confirm what she said. And she said, tops came from Manchester, bass boxes from London, other parts from France, mid-range was furbished from an 80s PA in Guadeloupe, and FS boxes custom built from Italy, all around the world. Now, if Jamaica had had a system that Kamal is advocating, where we could consult on building, we would be able to offer this service, but we don't think of the sound system seriously. It's part of the result of what has happened when a government takes working class culture for granted, doesn't think it has any value, dismisses it, and the so-called experts, the technocrats who could perhaps have been given advice on how to turn the sound system culture into a more vibrant economic system, have just dismissed the whole sector. So we now have, next slide, the successors of the 1990 Sound System Organization of Jamaica, the 21st Century Jamaica Sound System Federation. And they boastfully say on their Facebook page that before dancehall, reggae, South rock, or ska, sound systems provided the primary source of entertainment and community in Jamaica. Known as the Talking Gleaner newspaper, in reference to its media function, the sound system has been an integral part of Jamaican life, both in Jamaica and abroad since the 1950s. But in an age when legacy media like the Gleaner are on the decline, sound systems need to rebrand to claim political power. You can't be calling yourself a Talking Gleaner in the 21st century. You have to come up with a new model for communication. And yes, you know, we're on Facebook and all of the various social media platforms, but I'm suggesting that metaphorically, thinking about the challenge that Kamal Amen throws out, the Sound System Organization of Jamaica has to find a way to become a different kind of organization. And you can see, in a way, they have to wheel and come again back to Louise's model of frightening people into joining into joining the association. To be honest, I couldn't get out of the Jamaica Sound System Federation how many people are in their association, how many members they have. I've asked a couple of times and I haven't got any answer. And I don't know what percentage of the total sound system operators does the membership represent. So that trust that Louise had to get everybody to join up is still very important. So Sound System Organization of Jamaica has to wheel and come again to try to pull together all of its members as a political force. So in conclusion, I come back, I end with the idea of the clash again. The dancehall sound system clash is a warning sign of contestation in the wider Jamaican society about the right to control public space, including the economy. The political elite attempt to police all aspects of dancehall culture, especially the noise that emanates from sound systems. Though legislation that is increasingly enforced, through legislation that is increasingly enforced, the ruling class prescribes the limits of the reach, both spatial and auditory, of dancehall culture. But like a skilled selector, dancehall culture clashes tune for tune with the establishment, more often than not, claiming supremacy long past the official 2 a.m. lock-off time for night music. And I must confess that I am one of the people who call police when the dance go on past 2 o'clock. I would not be honest if I didn't say this. I like to sleep. So I understand the contestation in the society. I know that the sound systems need to go ahead, but I know people need to sleep. And this is one of the things that we need to do. We need to create entertainment zones away from residential communities where people can go on until morning. And I also have this vision of headphone fits, headphone sessions. I know in Jamaica, people like to stand up beside the sound system box and make it rock them hard. I know, I think that it's dangerous. People don't understand that sound is a powerful force. I don't know that my headphone sound system part is gonna take off, but there must be some way. We have to come up with some way where the sound systems can continue and people can sleep. And also we need to consider more day parties. Why do we have to have everything going on till 4 o'clock in the morning? My brother Kingsley Cooper's Pulse Entertainment Group used to have parties at the Trafalgar Road venue. And one night, a couple came at about 1 o'clock for the concert, for the show. And it was with great distress that they heard that the show was finished. It was built to start at 8 o'clock and it started at 8 o'clock and it had finished. In fact, one year, a newspaper journalist reported that one of Pulse's shows started late at 10 minutes past 8, 10 minutes past the announced hour. So, it's a whole lot of issues, balancing rights, balancing the rights of the industry, balancing the rights of citizens who want to sleep. But it's really something that if the society took it on as an issue to say sound systems are an essential part of this music business, an essential part of the Jamaican economy, let us find a way to make sure that all of us can work together. Then things would change. But for now, it is still a clash between sound system and the police, between sound system and law and order. So finally, the singers and players of instruments in Jamaica, whose voice is amplified by the global recorded music industry, are willing to risk dangers of the border clash. They lay themselves on the line as spokespersons for the masses of the Jamaican people, whose dissonant voices of whose dissonant expressions of social malaise are often muffled in the official discourses of the nation. The informality of the sound system sector has impeded recognition of its actual worth. In this regenerative post-lockdown moment, at the crossroads of marginality and inclusion, sound systems must wheel and come again to ensure that they are totally integrated into the formal economy and their value is fully acknowledged and accurately calculated. And I just have a couple more slides of thank you. Next slide. I must give thanks to my friend Maria Papastatu, a visual designer from Greece, who created this beautiful PowerPoint presentation. And next slide, I must also pay respects to another friend, the late Michael Free-Sally Thompson, whose posters of Jamaican artists and mobile sound system vans were liberally used by Maria for the presentation. Michael and Maria collaborated to found the International Reggae Poster Contest, and that has been another medium through which sound system culture has gone globally. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carolyn. Fantastic. Gosh, the questions are already piling in. So we're not going to be short of questions, but I'd just like to give my own thanks to your contribution there. And because I think perhaps people outside of Jamaica, loving the culture, loving the music, loving the sound systems, don't actually realize the struggles that go on the island of Jamaica to get the recognition that the culture has received virtually everywhere else in the world. And so I think that that's quite, if you like, salutary to recognize the challenges for the culture in its home territory in the island of its birth, and that struggle that you mentioned. I mean, it's fabulous. All the names that you call. I mean, like Louise Fraser Bennett. I did interviews with her before she died back then, and the names you call to give respect to all of you, and Sonia Stanley Nye, all of you who have contributed to, I won't say the push back, but the push forward of the culture against the resistance that it meets in many of the establishment.
Can I just make a little point, Juliet? I didn't have time to include this in the. It's probably back to front, so you can't see.
No,
but
we can see it good. We can see it good.
You can read it?
Yeah, man.
All right. This is an article that was written in 1995 by a quite sensible Jamaican journalist, Michael Record. It was about the Reggae Studies unit at UWI, but his headline, what an idea, a Reggae Studies unit at UWI. Now you could take that two ways. What an idea, what a ridiculous idea, and what a great idea, but the idea that is what an idea, it's just the sense that any attempt to try to take down market working class culture seriously as an academic project is something that is so startling. As I said in the column yesterday, we had set up a sound system, Outernational, at the University of the West Indies. The first thing would say, what a waste of resources. You'd be hearing that this is pure foolishness. So it takes a foreign university like University of London to help us to do what we should be able to do without any contestation. And I know that Sonia has been working with other institutions to try to, develop, the scholarship, but it's really a hard fight. Can you imagine, I conceived Reggae Studies in 1992. Had the university taken it seriously, can you imagine where the institution would have been several decades later? Anyhow.
Anyway, no, but
so it goes.
This is how it goes and how it has been pushed forward. And for the generations coming up, they can take advantage and push it forward even more so. But let me go to the questions here, and do keep them coming. But I'm going to read the first one, which is from Talika Kirkland. And she says, hi, Professor Cooper. Why do you think some Jamaican people have been reticent to embrace the culture of sound systems? Does this link to considerations of class and respectability?
Absolutely, you have answered the question. That is what it's about, Sound system started in the downtown, urban, jungles, and it's working class people's culture and it's working class people's solace, as Agostina said. So it's not important. That is why it's disregarded. Simple as that.
And of course, all these issues are compounded in a pandemic, and we find in every country the inequalities are just made worse by what's happening. But let me go to a question from Brian.
And can I say, if any of my collaborators are on the call, please feel free to raise your hand and amplify any of my answers, because as you know, I'm not an expert on the subject. I have to tell everybody that if I had read Julian's email carefully enough, I would not have agreed to give this talk, because the first part of the invitation said, you can talk about anything you want. And I never saw the second part, which had to do with the theme of the conference. So I tell you, but I've enjoyed the process, Julian, and I'm glad you pushed me to reflect on the subject.
Well, I'm very happy for how positively you came back, Carolyn. And so, but let me go to the next question. This is from Brian. Thank you for preparing this fantastic lecture, he says. Can you briefly expand a bit on the celebration versus rebellion, entertainment versus crime, noise versus sound nexus in Jamaican history, and the significance of that for today's society?
Yeah, well, I would only say if you go back all the way to the Maroons, the abeng was a musical instrument that was used to sound the alarm when the British were attacking, you know. So you see from way back in our history that music has been a weapon of resistance. It has been, yes, a cultural weapon to affirm the value of music as a nurturing kind of activity, but it's also specifically a weapon of war. So I think you can see that from the very construction of Jamaican society, we were set upon to resist all of the cultural traditions that we brought from Africa. The drum is such a central instrument. Why would you ban drums and horns? Because people use drums and horns to send messages, to foment rebellion, to affirm their right to public space and their right to survive on their own terms. So what I'm trying to suggest when I go back to those early laws, 17th century, 18th century coming up, you could see a history that the contemporary situation fits into. It's the banning of sound system noise, and you know, the policing of the culture through the Noise Abatement Act is a direct descendant of those earlier laws. It's a way to try to control the society, to articulate a philosophy of the society that is respectable, that is Christian. But one of the interesting things is that a lot of these churches make a whole heap of noise too. So they also fall under the Noise Abatement Act. So it's joyful noise unto the Lord is just as problematic as a joyful noise unto Eros.
Indeed. And yeah, but putting it in that perspective gives us, you know, a better understanding, a better foothold, as it were, to push forward. The next question is from Larissa Kingston Mann, and she's making an interesting point here. While the business aspect is definitely under-recognized, do you think there's any part of the informality that should be preserved, or that it is valuable because it's informal? Do you think that there are moments or locations where it's possible or worthwhile for Jamaica to value the culture without seeing it as an economic activity?
Absolutely, that's a brilliant question, because it's a question of valuing what appear to be competing goods. Because yes, it is good to have an informal space in which you can operate outside of the invasive law. You know, that it is about creating your own space that is not breached. But you see, at the same time, the informality means that if the economic value of your operation is not calculable, then there are certain benefits that you can't claim, like, for example, you know, release from duties on musical instruments and these kinds of things, you know, where if you're not registered, if you're not part of the system, then you may not be able to get those kinds of tax benefits. I understand the psychology of distancing from the state, and we will always have people who don't want to join up with the big organizations and so on. So it will, I guess it will balance out, but people have to be made to see that there's a benefit to X action over against the other, and they're going to choose whatever seems to make sense to them. So I do, you know, I do take that there's a very complex issue about the value of marginality, you know.
Yeah, and
you're off the radar.
Yeah, and Talika asked a question about that, but I think you more or less answered it. So I'll go along now to David Katz's question here. Thank you for your thought-provoking presentation. I would like to hear more about the concept of entertainment zones, where sound systems can operate freely without having to worry about residential concerns. Has this concept proposed official officially? Has this been proposed officially? And if so, to by whom? And when was it proposed? And how was it received?
Okay. No, I can't answer that question. I don't know if anybody else can answer it, but is an idea.
You have answers. Sorry to interrupt you, Professor, but you have to go via the Q&A function, and one will feed the questions in so I can, or feed the answers in.
Yes, so if you have anything, I understand. If you have anything you could make. To the best of my knowledge, this has not been formally proposed, but I don't know. And somebody must have thought of it, because let me try and Google quickly to see if I find anything. But
you don't have to do that. you don't have to do your research in front of us.
Oh, but I mean, I'm trying to answer the question: entertainment zones in Jamaica. Let me see if anything comes up. But there are lots of abandoned warehouses downtown. All right. I see something here in the Gleaner: entertainment zones to create ecosystem opportunities. All right, here it is now. This is an article that came out in February 2020. Despite calls for the 2-hour extension of entertainment events to be carried into Reggae Month, the amendments to the Noise Abatement Act was reversed, and so on and so forth. And we are mindful, we have to find that balance. That's where the entertainment zones come in. You just watch and see what's going to happen in Port Royal. Just because of the cruise ship pier, it's going to be an entire reworking of how Kingston functions. It is time. This is Simpson speaking now. Let me see which Simpson is this now. Ewan Simpson, president of Jamaica Reggae Industry Association. He's saying that's where the entertainment zones come in. Simpson closed that in addition to Rocky Point, that could be a Rocky Point entertainment zone. Arrangements could be made to shuttle people into and from the venue. Well, you see, that is a problem now, because you have to go pay to be shuttled, and in a city, people don't have no money to pay to be shuttled. So, I mean, I realize that it's a complicated issue to shuttle, because going back to Agostina's point, the sound system is a way to establish community. So if you take it out of the community and send it to an entertainment zone far away, it defeats the purpose. I wasn't thinking that way as far as Rocky Point. I was thinking just go downtown, find some spaces downtown where, you have old buildings that are just sitting down there, not doing anything, where you could have events there. So my idea is very basic. So as I said, I would have to do a little bit more research to answer that question properly. So if anybody on the system can feed your comment in through the, through the Q&A, that would be much appreciated.
Yeah. And that issue of becoming official and the sacrifices are something I made. We have the issues like that around Notting Hill Carnival.
Yes.
You're aware that
absolutely
there are dangers in officialdom, as we know. The next question is from Eric Abbey, who thanks you for your amazing talk. And can you speak to the differences of an event at Stone Love headquarters? He gives us an example, an event like Mojito Mondays, or Uptown Mondays, for example, or other dances in parking lots, right? Would one be supported more than the other by an established body? He asks.
Okay, I can't answer that question because, as I said, I like to sleep and I go to none of those things. In the days when we had Sting, I would sleep and go to Sting like 6 o'clock in the morning, which is when you would have the big act. So I really cannot speak with any authority about the differences between the various events and which ones would receive state authority or approval. I really can't answer that one.
Okay. Well, there's lots more that I'm sure you will be able to answer. So I'm just going to keep going, keep the pace up. But thank you.
As I said quite clearly, I'm not an authority on the subject. My area of expertise is literature. I've been moonlighted in cultural studies. So
for many years.
I've got my comeuppance revealing to the whole world my ignorance.
No. Let's keep the pace up, because you have a very attentive audience who are producing some.
I'll answer what I can.
Yeah, absolutely, and you are doing, and you're helping us, the rest of us, by doing so. And this is from Sonia Stanley Nair, and she asked,
what question Sonia asking me now?
Let me give you a chance and I'll tell you. There is a process afoot, she says, through the development of orders spearheaded by the Ministry of Culture. First for an entertainment zone in Kingston, approved.
Okay.
The first one approved was Fort Charles. The work is ongoing. So perhaps that's to help you out.
All right. Okay, good.
Sonia,
All right.
thank you for that.
Thanks, Sonia, for that.
Yeah.
Sonia is part of the Entertainment Advisory Board, so she's supposed to know.
She must know, yes, she must. and then the next question from Deborah Hickling-Gordon.
Yay, Deborah.
Of course, her work. And she says the experiment with the zones led to the Palisadoes strip being locked down. That's what yeah. And so that's another piece of information there for us, yeah.
Yes, no, that was a catastrophic event because people missed their flights. It was awful because they had not arranged the parking properly and the whole Palisadoes strip shut down. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if you're gonna do the zones, you have to do it properly. You can't have it as a free-for-all where people park anywhere and you're going to the airport because the Palisadoes strip is on the way to the airport. Mm-hmm. So hundreds of people missed their flights because they couldn't get through the party. So there was a whole furore about that. Thanks, Deborah, for reminding me.
And perhaps with the questions, we can turn a bit about the particular challenges in the lockdown. And it was because it's very interesting the examples that you gave with the dub plates and the headphones and the so on, getting
and the parachuters.
Yes, and getting a push forward there. But there is, and so please, perhaps if you can, any in the audience want to share any experiences of that or ask any questions about that, that would be very welcome. But there is another question here from El Amaral, who said, how is it possible to balance the inner auditive and the outer physical aspects of sound, recreating or associating vibes and the virtual world? Okay, and he thanks you. So this is well about precisely the challenges that we have in the
lockdown.
Yeah, because of the lockdown, and one would assume, unfortunately, continuing.
Yeah. Well, you know, you have to be able to flex. You have to be able to balance. Everybody wants the physicality of the space, the body in space, actual space, not virtual space. But if that is not possible, you will have to settle for virtuality. You know, we're having this conference virtually. I can sit down in my study in my yard and converse with a whole set of people. Otherwise, I would have to be on a flight. I would have to be fighting up with people for a business class ticket because they would want to put me in economy. And I would, you know, I mean, all of those harassments are, you know, gone because you can do this thing virtual. But yes, you miss the intimacy of actually being face to face. So I don't know how else to answer the question to say that every situation has its positives and negatives, you know, and that in the virtual space, we have some losses, but we also have gains. We have a wider audience that we can appeal to. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, that's already, I'm going to come to my team members and ask them perhaps if they'd like to put some questions directly in a moment. But that last point you made about the plus side of being virtual, and that came out as you listened to on Friday in the panel discussion there. And just the very fact that we had literally sound systems from the four corners of the world in the discussion, and they were made some very interesting and important points about being able to reach out further than their local area under the pandemic, but also to be able to, if you like, to take stock, to give consideration to their strategies and what they want to do, the pivots that they might be doing. So we did,
and even rehabilitating equipment. A lot of people say that they've spent this time, you know, fixing up their sound systems and so on and so forth.
So there are some positives to it, and so and we shouldn't forget those as well as the challenges. So I want to give a chance to my fellow Outernational crew here to perhaps they would like to put some questions directly to Carolyn here, and then yeah, that will be great. So we're really making you work.
Yeah, man, you're making me sweat. I have to go and wipe off sweat, man. It's the lights, you know, the bright lights. But anyhow, I need to be visible.
Yeah, you do.
Okay, I can hear the questions while I'm wiping sweat.
Okay. So would anybody else like to come in there from yeah, Juana, Leo, Brian, David? Calling your names. You have to come off mute though. Oh, Carolyn. Yeah, right. Leo.
I'm here.
Yeah. Leo's looking for something.
Yes, Leo.
Leo.
Okay. Carolyn, very inspiring lecture. Thank you very much.
I tried my best.
We will have a global reggae conference in February in Jamaica, and I'd like to know if there will be a discussion about this pandemic times. There is a plan to include these issues on the conference.
All right. Well, remember now, I have long been emancipated from the UWI plantation. I retired 5 years ago. I can't believe it. And I think Sonia can, not I think, I know Sonia can answer that question. She's answered. Perhaps, Sonia, you could say something in the Q&A that can respond to Leo. Thank goodness I'm not involved in conference planning anymore. It has been so much work over the years. But I'm happy to know that the work is continuing, and that I'm sure the conference coming up must look at the pandemic. That has to be an issue.
I don't know if Sonia wants to come in the chat in the Q&A, just in answer to that as the convener, Sonia, standing out of the February conference. That I'll leave that to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so anybody else there are questions coming in. I can go back to the ones I have in front of me, but I just wondered if one or Brian, you have any or David have any questions at this point? Okay, well, seeing as you haven't switched yourself on, I will go back to the audience here. And this is a question from Jean-Christophe Sevin. Professor Cooper, to work for the recognition, and I should explain, Jean-Christophe is a colleague in France in a university in the southern part of France, Aix-en-Provence, and he's asking from where he is literally. So he thanks you for your work in getting sound systems recognized. Do you think it will be relevant to look for allies, right, in the Jamaican diaspora, especially in France and England, to help you with your work?
Absolutely. And I mean, the Reggae Studies Unit always reached out to allies, you know, and I think there may not have been as many institutional alliances as we would have liked, but I think these are now developing, and Sonia again can talk more about that. But I think not just the diaspora, Jamaican diaspora, but there are reggae fans across the globe who have done excellent work. And these are people that we have tried to include in the work at the University of the West Indies. David has come to speak, you know, Leo was part of the Global Reggae Conference that we had, and we have reached out because we know that even though Jamaica claims primacy as the place of origin, you know, we have given our music to the world, and everybody now has a claim to it, and also a claim on the scholarship. And, you know, the scholarship is another level of value that Jamaicans can't control. So we want to be open to a whole range of insights. It is true that, you know, sometimes people from outside don't really see the culture accurately, we would say, and they like to say that because we're so close to the culture, we can't see it accurately. But I think all of these contending voices and positions are important as we try to advance the field.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Let me go to another question from Larissa Kingston-Mann, and she's asking further to the question: how accessible is the virtual to working class, the virtual world to working class communities in the heart of the Jamaican music industry? I really don't know what the state of broadband internet access is, computer access and phone access to be there for them right now, because clearly that's the divide.
Well, I believe that a lot of people in Jamaica have phones, but many of them don't have smartphones. So, you know, that's an issue. So it's all, I mean, when people are suffering with basic struggles for food, it's very difficult for them to be spending money on internet. And I have to tell you that the two companies that we have don't add up to one, Flow and Digicel. I mean, right now I'm so mad with them because I'm surprised that we were able to hold this conversation without any loss of internet. Because we just hold on for the next little while till we finish, because it is just terrible. So yes, poverty does constrain the capacity of people to access the internet. So the digital world is not really available to everybody in societies like Jamaica. People, as I said, people have basic cell phone to make a call, but not for any extended kind of access to the internet.
And exactly, but the next question from Natalie Crew is going on and on that thing, on that particular tip, and says that there is an intimacy that can occur in the metaverse, in the virtual world.
Yes,
right?
yes.
She's saying, and the global audience can be in a community.
Absolutely.
She tells us that JZ recently bought into Sensorium, other platforms like Crypto Voxels and Decentraland are providing monetized and participatory community building opportunities for under-resourced communities and cultures, she says.
Yes. Well, we need to know more about that to see how we could access those resources.
Okay, so I'm going on to, and the questions are coming, so as long as you're, we'll let you go shortly.
I'm good, man, I'm good. I have my...
Yeah, you have napkin, right. This is from Carol Scobie.
Yes.
Great lecture, she says. Can you comment on just how former Prime Minister Eddie Seaga did fit into this disjuncture between freedom and lockdown of Jamaican culture?
You see, Carol want to put me into politics now. Well, you know that Eddie Seaga had a major role in the development of the record producing industry. You know, he owned a company, and so he was on the ground in the industry. In terms of the disjuncture, well, you know, you could use the music as a politician for all kinds of purposes. So that is all I will say. I don't want to get into any more detail than that, except to say that when Eddie came to the university as a distinguished fellow in residence, it was about the same time that my book on dancehall was launched, Sound Clash, and I asked Eddie to speak, to launch the book. God have mercy, you should have heard the reactions. Me turn labor right now. You know, how am I gonna mix up with Eddie? I will go to any extent to sell books. And I'm saying, one person said to me, knowledge is different from politics, which I thought was so perceptive that, you know, Eddie was a knowledgeable man in the music business. And I thought it was a great idea to ask him to launch my book, especially since he was now in the university as a distinguished fellow. So I think that the disjunctures sometimes are also opportunities. And I think Siaga is a very complex figure, and it's very difficult to just either write him off or put him on a pedestal, as you know, you get the extremist responses. Somewhere in between, you know. When I launched the Global Reggae book, I invited him to come. He came, you know, I gave him a copy of the book. Anyway, he has been very supportive of my work because he sees that he saw that I was trying to do the kind of thing he was doing, advancing the music, but not necessarily for the purposes that he might have used it for as a politician.
Okay, thank you. Yes, that's a good way.
That's the best answer I can give.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it. But let me go to another question now from Janelle Rodriguez.
Mm-hmm.
Professor Cooper, thank you for his presentation. I'm curious with the anticipated gentrification of downtown.
Mm-hmm.
A term that's come up with regards to Sound System International work as well.
Yes,
making things official has to be taken care of. The gentrification of downtown. What repercussions might this have for the community building in inner city communities, and for quality of sound and sound system culture in the future? Do you have any thoughts, speculations, or reflections on this? I'd love to hear from other participants.
Yes. Yeah, that's a problem globally. You gentrify, quote unquote, you push out the poor people, you bring in the gentry, and you completely change the character of the neighborhood. Now, in some cities, my sister, for example, she's an attorney who works with the DC government, and part of what she does as an attorney working with community developments is to monitor, work with companies that are forced to include low-income housing as part of their whatever development they do. Sometimes the people try to put the low-income housing at the back of the building, you know, but it's a requirement that if you are going to gentrify, you have to keep space for people who cannot afford the expensive buildings that you are going to put up. So it has to be that the governments have a vision of who has a right to what space. Now, I've long said that in any other society, you have the 7th largest natural harbor in the world. You turn the harbor into a sewer, you abandon downtown Kingston, you create a new Kingston uptown, you know, and you just leave the city to disintegrate. Sensible companies like Grace Kennedy never left. They just put up a brand new building, you know, just underscoring their commitment to downtown. So if we want to rehabilitate downtown, it has to be with an inclusive vision. It cannot be that now we suddenly realize that Kingston Harbor is a great place to put up high-rise buildings. So we put up all these high-rise buildings that nobody can afford. And poor people are still on the edges of the city, living in horrific conditions. So yeah, it is a very good question, how to manage it.
Yeah, and coming up now, I think probably the last question. We've had nearly an hour and a half of this session, so it's a good session. Thank you all panelists for your questions. But this last one is coming from Wana, one of our crew, and she's asking, you brought up a thoughtful critique of Nordicities. Is that how you say it?
Yes, Nordicity. I think it's Nordicity.
Yeah, Nordicities Northern Consulting on the Global South, which I thought it was right to do, she says. Thinking about this from a more local perspective, curious if Dr. Cooper or Dr. Stanley Nair knows whether Jamaica's marginalized communities are part of any formal or consulting discussions relating to the future of sound system culture. I'm curious about whether folks who have arguably the most to gain or lose, she says that, or lose from the regulations, policy developments, have a say in things. What do you think might be the value of including marginalized voices, and is this a realistic possibility?
It has to be a realistic possibility. One of the points that Louise made in the lecture, which I didn't get a chance to quote, is where she told the Minister of Justice that you cannot have a noise abatement act that doesn't include the input of the sound system operators, because she said Michael Manley promised emancipation. Michael Manley said he was for the people. So, you know, you have to have a system. Sonia might be able to tell us if through the Ministry's Entertainment Advisory Board, there is any formal consultation with these quote unquote marginalized groups. I know that Ricky Trooper, for example, is on the board of the entertainment, but I don't know if Trooper, as a highly successful, you know, sound man, is really speaking for the marginalized groups. You know, so it's you know, you have a hierarchy in sound systems still. You have the top sounds, then you have like the parachuters. I just love that metaphor, you know. And so you have to have a consensual system that recognizes that the people who are going to be impacted by whatever decisions you make have to be consulted. But most development models do not do that. It's always top down. We are the experts and we know what is good for you. And some of the people, some of the marginal people may very well say, we want to be part of the group, you know, we want to become formalized. We can't assume that everybody on the margins wants to stay up there. Sometimes people want to become part of the system because they can see benefits from being formalized. So we have to talk to them to see how they can be included and their needs met. Otherwise, the development model is completely compromised.
Okay, well, I think that's where we're going to have to end it. And just
yes.
May I correct myself? The last question was from Alana Stewart. So thank you very much, Alana.
Hey,
I think you know.
Alana is my house guest, for full disclosure. Very talented composer, singer, songwriter with the group Bonjay, Bonjay. Go and check it out. I'm going to give a plug to Alana.
Okay, very nice. And thank you for your question. And thank you all panelists. Panelists, yes. But most of all for our audience for staying so engaged.
Yes, absolutely, thank you.
Fabulous.
I'm putting up with my bogus answers.
No, there's no bogusness here. There never is with you, Carolyn. And basically, just on behalf of the whole of Sound System Outernational, you've met us all now.
Yes.
And we really give you a big thanks for supporting us and contributing in such a generous way, and if you like pushing, as you say, new territories, and making you work, agreeing to work so hard with your team, your yes. village, as you called it.
My village. I have to big up my village.
Yeah, no, and yes. So we totally appreciate that.
Absolute pleasure, Julian. Thank you.
No, it's been beautiful. It's been absolutely beautiful. So I'm just going to wind up now and say. Thank you again to Carolyn. We can't hear the applause. This is the sadness of it, but never mind. To say that this is the second day. We have another day tomorrow with a panel discussion, street music cultures, the struggle for survival. So some of the issues that Carolyn has been dealing with and been addressing, we can discuss there. And that tomorrow is followed by a sound system session from Kebra, Ethiopia, who's based in South Africa, because every night we have a sound system session after the panel, and also ongoing, as already been mentioned, we have a fantastic film program courtesy of Leo Vidigal, who's curated that, which is available just for this period of the conference online, and you can get the links to that. And so that's an opportunity not to miss. So what we're doing next, we're going to have a break. We've had an hour and a half of session now. We're going to have a break, go away, refresh yourselves, right? But come back to our YouTube channel where you will have the premiering of Feminine Hi-Fi from Brazil, who are doing a special session for us. So the vibes will keep going tonight and for the rest of the week. So thank you all for joining us, and thank you again, Professor Cooper. What a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.